Hey guys, I wanted to come on here and kind of give a response to something that a couple people asked. I've actually been thinking about kind of telling this story for a long time. I know I post stuff about, my son, the whole thing, but last week when I made that story and, threw out the question box or whatever, just said, hit me with anything. Somebody reached out, actually, a couple people asked what it's like, how I'm doing, having a son that has cancer that's, 6 years old. And I think a lot of people are curious. I think a lot of people don't want to ask. Hopefully that's just not me like having main character syndrome or something, but comes up quite a bit, when I talk to other guys and people out on the range and stuff, and just, they kind of make comments like, yeah, I can't even imagine, and stuff like that. And yeah, a lot of people have asked though, how I'm doing and how am I okay, and seems, like just kind of still like living life or whatever, and just kind of wondering like how it's even possible, given the weight of my situation. And just wanted to kind of like give a backstory. So a lot of you guys know I'm a believer. I've, was raised in a Christian home, went to church, all that stuff. Like everybody, my relationship with God's been like, a roller coaster. It's, over the years, been through some stuff, a divorce, whatever. Got close to God, fallen away, just like everybody has. And yeah, so there's a little bit of a backstory. Just, I think that's important to know before I start talking about it, that I am a believer, and my faith has always been, a big part of my life. If not, it's everything to me. So anyways, long story short, not really, but let's get into it. So yeah, so my son got diagnosed with leukemia on September 11th of 23. Little bit of a backstory. If you guys don't know me personally, I'm totally that guy that's like against the grain on everything. Like, didn't vaccinate my kids, do the organic food thing, let them eat steak, don't push vegetables on them. I kind of just, where I've landed with my own nutrition, which it's 100% intentional. And I think, it's like the best case for me, and it works for me. So I don't really push it on my kids, but they kind of, just by default ended up eating a lot of the same stuff that I eat, a lot of red meat, a lot of fruit, not so much with the grains and all that stuff, eggs. But anyways, so, here I am thinking that I've cheated the system, and I'm raising like the next heavyweight UFC champion that's going to be, like 6'2", 250 pounds, and 8% body fat, that can do anything to anyone at any time, or, somebody that's going to join the military and do like high level stuff. That's just kind of my mindset. And so I've always, since Gadsden was born, thinking, that's in the back of my mind, that what I'm dealing with. So, yeah. So, needless to say, him ending up getting leukemia was like something that I didn't even think of anything like health wise. I thought I cheated the system. I had it all figured out. And so it's kind of funny how God gives us these, trials that are designed specifically for us, or to make us into who he wants us to be, or perfect, kind of recipe for disaster, if you will, to humble us, and get us to become who he wants us to be. And so anyways, just another quick little note that'll kind of help you guys understand how I'm able to like withstand this storm, I guess is a way of putting it. So back to the whole relationship with God thing. If you look back on my Instagram, I don't know, it was like right before Gadsden, the first picture I posted when we were in the hospital with Gadsden, telling what had happened. I kind of made a post, just whatever was on my heart. God was just kind of stirring, my mind, my heart, to kind of stop playing around and, get in the game with my faith, and kind of reeling me back in through, just some stuff that I had going on or whatever. So I made a post, and that was just where I was at that time. And I'll never forget it. I walked in to the house one day after work, and my wife, was like, hey, sit down, have dinner. Sitting there, and she's like, hey, ask Gadsden what he said he wants to be when he grows up. And I'm like, cool, he's gonna tell me right now he wants to be like a Navy SEAL or, a UFC fighter or something. And he sits down on my lap, looks up at me, smiles, and says, I want to be a pastor. And I'm like, totally did not see that coming. Definitely wasn't my idea. Never coached him in that. We go to church, we read the Bible with our kids, we do like family Bible study stuff, all that. So for him to say that, it wasn't too far out of left field, but like definitely wasn't on my radar. That was 100% like his little like 5-year-old mind. And so anyways, when he told me that, I'm going to lose some of you guys by saying this, and I know it's not biblical to say, you can hear God audibly, but I kind of just felt in that moment, like I started crying at the dinner table, like, not because I was like, oh, I'm super proud of you, dude, or whatever. I just felt like I heard God say, buckle up, because I was like, just, someone that does something like that, and then like at 5 years old, like everything and anything is coming against that person. And so that just kind of was like, okay, that's what you want to do. And I just kind of knew like we were in for it, like one way or another, like storm ahead, right? So anyways, yeah, so some time goes by, a couple of months or something, and I take him to the park, typical deal. Had some little monkey bars, and he was, trying to do them, dropping like a foot from the ground. They're like the little kid ones. He did it like 100 times, kept, not making it all the way across and dropping. Not a big deal. I was catching him, standing right there, holding him, making sure he didn't like fall hard or hit his head on something else or whatever. So anyways, that night he couldn't sleep, and he was just like, said his legs hurt, and he was like really restless, and he was whiny. And he is totally not whiny. I'm not kidding, this kid's never thrown a fit and does not whine about stuff. He's been able to like reason like he's an adult since he was like 2 years old. Not even kidding. So this was like totally weird, like, but I'm like, oh, he just went too hard at the park. First time he's ever had like that, soreness to that level, or something got tweaked, or whatever the case may be. So anyways, couple days go by, and it kind of goes away, and it comes back. And we're like, okay, like whatever, maybe he did like hurt himself. So we take him to urgent care, and they do an x-ray, and the x-ray comes back, nothing wrong, right? So goes away again, leg pain stops, he's okay, bounces right back, everything's fine, he's playing, he's running around, he's jumping, all that stuff. Well, a couple days later, the pain comes back. Well, now at this point, my middle daughter, she had a pediatrician appointment coming up, and we're like, let's just have Gadsden seen then too. So we ended up, setting that up, going to the pediatrician appointment, and we were like telling him what happened. He's checking Vera out. She has a couple little things going on, nothing crazy. And he just immediately just like dead focused, like it was like, cool, like I'm not worried about you, but something's going on with you. Like immediately hones in on Gadsden. He's looking at his eyes. He asks him to squat down, and Gadsden like barely moves. And then he looks at his eyes, and he tells me, hey, come over here, look in his eyes. I'm like, okay. He's like, do you see any red in the whites of his eyes at all? And I'm like, no. He's like, I've been a pediatrician for a long time. Something's wrong with your son. You need to get in the car and go to Rady's right now. And I'm like, dude, you're crazy. So what am I going to do? Am I going to say no and then have it be something serious? So, yeah, so we head down to Rady's, get down there. They had to draw blood, after we got all checked in the ER. That was what they decided that they were going to do. So they drew blood, and that was his first time ever having a needle, puncture his body. And he took it like a champ, didn't even cry the first time. So I walk out of the room, I go to get some food at the little Subway or whatever right outside of Rady's, right outside of the ER. And I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden my wife calls and says, hey, the doctor's in here. She wants you to be in here. And I'm like, that's weird, you know? So I'm thinking it's gonna be no big deal. Maybe he, like, I don't know, fractured his shin or something crazy, right? So I go in, I sit down, and doctor comes in, sits down, looks at the ground, looks up with tears in her eyes and says, your son has leukemia. And we're like, no, he has sore legs. And, you know, it's just like, nah. And it would just, I don't know. I just, you know, usually I don't trust medical professionals. And it's just like, okay, they're not just gonna say that. Like, that would be a wild mistake to make, right? So we look at each other, my wife starts crying. I kind of am like crying, and like, I can't even begin to tell you, like I said earlier, you know, like you almost hear God audibly. And as soon as the doctor tells us this, I just felt like God was like, he's gonna be okay. And I looked at her, and I'm like, doctor walks out of the room, I'm like, did you just feel like, you know, he's gonna be okay? And she's like, yeah. So we're like, okay. And I just knew, like, right then, like, this was it. Like, when he told me he wanted to be a pastor, this is where we were headed. I knew there was a storm, and here we were. So you know, we kind of go in there, and we go in, and, you know, they immediately admit us to the hospital, come up with a treatment plan, do a bone marrow sample, all these things. And I'm just like, you know, a ton of bricks hit me. But at the same time, it was like nothing. Like, I just knew, like, he was gonna be okay. And that wasn't like some, mind power, like positive thoughts crap or nothing like that. Like, I just knew. And so one of the biggest things in the beginning of all this was like a couple months in, you know, we're just like taking it day by day, but, you know, we still both had like that instant where God was just like, he's gonna be fine, just like whispered in our ear, like, you know, in the worst time of our lives. And just was like, so anyways, we're kind of just going through it. We lived on site at Rady's for like about a month in the beginning. They're doing chemotherapy. They installed a port in his chest, like all these things. And I just never really felt like stressed out. Like, I never did. And that's totally my, you know, my go-to. I'm a worrier. So it was just kind of weird. Like, I just like looking at myself in the mirror, like, why aren't you worried? Like, what the heck, you know? And anyways, so we're going through the motions. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between that kind of reassures us both, especially me, of, you know, what happened, or what happened in that ER room when God kind of just was like, hey, he's gonna be okay. So anyways, so we're going through it, and I just know he's gonna be okay, you know. And there's a lot of things that validated those thoughts, or, you know, confirmed it for me that that's whatever. But a month in, we go in. I didn't really understand the weight of this appointment at the beginning, or at the I didn't really understand the weight of the appointment at that month mark, where they did, you know, another bone marrow sample and all that to see if he was in remission. And so we went in there, and the doctor just like walks in, he's like, yeah, he's in remission. We're like, wait, like, I mean, I guess I just didn't really understand the whole, you know, implications of like what could have been said that day, you know, because I don't really know the roadmap for him, if he wasn't, you know. So anyways, we're going through it, you know. So here we are, just like one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. And that's just kind of been our thing throughout. One of the things that kind of really stood out, a couple things, just, I don't want to make this like a 3-hour thing, but one of the first times we had to go back down to the hospital after he had got out, you know, he still has to do chemo like weekly, daily, all this stuff. So in the beginning, it's a lot more intense. And the first time we go back down to Rady's, we jump in the truck, And we start driving, and I like Pastor Jack Hibbs, so I just wanted to throw on something while we're driving, you know. And I actually made another like little video talking about this instance. So, but if you didn't watch it, basically we jump in, throw on a Pastor Jack little video on YouTube. It comes up first thing on my feed, and it says how to pray. I'm like, cool, let's listen to it while we drive. So we're driving, and you know, he starts talking about like how to pray in faith, and not like want to know too many, you know, of the details of the situation when people come to ask him to pray for them and stuff. And so I kind of just sitting there listening, like, well, like this is like interesting timing, right? So anyways, he kind of goes on, and he's like, gives this example. He's like, you know, and these people come to me and they're like, yeah, my son has, you know, leukemia. And I'm just like, okay, like, wow, another, you know, coincidence. What? Well, probably not. So he's talking, and he's going on and on. He just kind of breaks it down, like how he says that he doesn't like to hear all like the ins and outs when people are telling him, you know, well, my son has leukemia and these are his numbers and this seems impossible and all this stuff. He just kind of says, you know, I just stop people. I want to know less, you know, and it'll help me pray in faith. And that's kind of like, man, like when we heard that, and like that whole video like really set us up for, you know, what we had up on the road ahead. And one of the big things he said was like, you know, if you're a believer, you're in this situation just like you are every other day. Whatever your situation is, wherever you look down and you find your feet, like you're there as the hands and feet of God. So so he's like, maybe you're gonna go in there, and you know, maybe you're gonna pray for one of the nurses and it's gonna change your life. And that would, you know, that's what this whole thing's about. And I'm like, okay. So we kind of do our best, you know, like when we're in there, to be a representative of God and in the situation. So anyways, yeah, so that's kind of like, all right, we're going through this, we're operating like this, and you know, we're just trusting God. We're remembering what he kind of said to us in that ER waiting room, and taking it day by day. And I really got to emphasize, like, I can't express like how, number one, I wasn't worrying like I had just always done by default, but just the fact that, you know, I didn't have any fear, I didn't have any weight on my shoulders. But hands down, the biggest thing that has made the biggest difference in this whole journey that we have going on, or whatever this whole storm is, a guy reached out to me on Instagram. Some of you guys know I'm like into like ham radio, emergency communication stuff, just like a hobby kind of thing, or preparedness thing. His name is Caleb, and he has a page called Prep Comms. And he reached out to me like pretty early on in this whole thing, and he's like, hey man, can I send you this video? It's about my wife. She had stage 4 cancer and she's fine, like she, you know, she beat it or whatever. And I'm like, cool, like I'll watch it, you know. So I watch it, and she was like, yeah, like, you know, they're telling her story, and she just kind of talks about how like everybody in the world's like, yeah, like your friends are like, you're gonna beat this, and you're a fighter and you're a warrior and all this stuff. And she was like, we rejected that. We rejected that approach. We didn't think it was biblical, however she worded it. And she's like, this is a season of rest. Like, this is beyond our control. And that's kind of like how we approached this whole thing. And since, you know, we saw her story, and we're like, yeah, like totally makes sense when you put it like that. Like, if you think and you tell yourself like you're a fighter in the situation, like, no, like you can't beat cancer. I don't know, I don't care how many F cancer bumper stickers you have, or you know, how much you hate it, it's beyond your control. So we're like, this is it, like this is our approach, this is where we're at. We're literally in a season of rest. And so that has hands down been the biggest thing. So when people ask me like, how are you okay, like how are you able to bear all that weight, and I'm like, I'm literally not. Like, that's why we're in this situation, I think, because I am that guy usually, you know, like if there's a problem, I can, you know, whatever the case may be, if I need to, you know, shoot, stab, fight, kill, whatever the case may be. Like, I'm gonna lift weights and train and shoot and all these things, and be a power lifter and all this crap, and I can handle anything. And what better way to show me that I can't, and to put me in a situation where the thing that is attacking my family, I guess, if you want to put it like that, is something that I can't even see, right? So yeah, so we hope that you guys can kind of understand that when you do find yourself in a position with a situation like kind of similar to we're in, hopefully God forbid it's not the same thing, just understand, like, if you're in a situation where it's like more than you can control, then there's a reason for that. Like, God's not expecting you to like rise to some other like higher level and take on the thing head on. He's putting you there so you can literally just like go, okay, like, it's on you. Like, I can't do anything, this is all on you. And that's what he wants. So if you find yourself in one of those positions, like, that's the answer. You're not gonna fight something you can't see. You're not gonna mind power it, and all the positive vibes and whatever the case may be. And so yeah, so just, I can't recommend that approach enough for if you're dealing with something. I don't care what it is. If it's something that's, any aspect of it is beyond your control, like, the only thing that you literally can do is just kind of go, okay, God, let's get me through this, right? And as far as Bible stories, or things from the Bible that really kind of I'm holding on to, and this is like looking at like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire, and God didn't spare them from the fire, but he spared them in the fire, right? And if then he was also basically seen in the fire with them, and they came out unscathed. And that's kind of like how I look at this situation. That's my prayer. So another thing, Caleb recommended and suggested, or mentioned that they did, was that he read Psalm 91 as a prayer out loud over his wife, over the situation, like, daily, right? And I wish I could say I did it every day, but I don't. But Psalm 91 is like plastered on the walls in my house. Gadsden has now memorized like 80% of it, and if you go read Psalm 91, it's not like 2 verses, it's a lot. So yeah, that's it. So the answer to that question of how am I able to bear all the weight, I'm not. And that's exactly how I'm handling this. And so that's exactly kind of just what we're doing, one foot in front of the other, trusting God, holding on to the promises that he's made to us, knowing what he's capable of. And yeah, so I hope that answers your question. If you're curious, cool. If not, then there's my story. All right.